Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us today for the first part in our MRL webinar series, Mastering Tool Management, your NX Tools at a Click of a Button. My name is Diana Dietrich. I'm the Marketing Specialist here at Swish Technologies, and I will be your moderator for this session. Just a little on Swish. For over 10 years, we've been a leading provider and partner of Siemens PLM. Our award-winning team is dedicated in providing you the best software and support necessary to optimize excellence in your workflow. Also, we're committed to bringing you the best training to your team. We focus on process-based training, meaning our instructors focus on tailoring the way they teach to benefit your entire product lifecycle. Presenting today is PLM Solution Consultant Steve Schnelker. Steve's career in the manufacturing industry spans 3 decades, and during his tenure at Siemens PLM as a design and manufacturing software developer, he oversaw and provided insight on software product development, management, and marketing of NX applications and processes. Today, he focuses on assisting and introducing manufacturers to product lifecycle management strategies. Our topic today is on MRL. Why waste time searching in your tool library for correct tooling and documentation when managing it can be as easy as a click of a button? Steve will be presenting how your library of tools can become the ideal data repository that's searchable and accurate. If you have any questions during our session, please feel free to add these into the questions box located in your GoToWebinar panel. Steve and our special guest, Sam Estrada, application engineer at Swish Technologies, will have your questions answered during the Q&A portion taking place right after the presentation. All right, Steve, take it away.
Thanks, Diana. Today, as the slide mentions here, the first item, I want to do a little bit of review on the what in terms of what the manufacturing resource library is. We did a webinar maybe 6 months ago where it went into more depth from a user perspective, what it can do and so forth, and we'd be happy to demonstrate it. But today's focus is going to be on how we would populate your tool library once you actually already have MRL. We've broken this into 2 sessions, and the first session today is primarily working with the NX ASCII tool database and how we can use that to directly create cutters within MRL. And then the other topic throughout is kind of an open-ended topic in that we're trying to determine the best way we can service our customers in terms of providing them the library content as they need it. We'll have a second session in the future, and we'll be covering more on how to get like holders and other files in from NX or STEP, as well as importing a generic tool catalog from the vendors, from like the Kennamentals and the Sandviks. And finally, we'll end up with some Q&A. So first, who uses it? The NX programmer uses it obviously to define his tool assemblies and which are used in the programs that he defines. He also performs G-code simulations, and he creates tool drawings for the tool setters and so forth. Tool setter requires a good specification of the tool assembly so that he can put it together. The machinist obviously needs to know what tool to put in the change or where. And purchasing on, I guess, the back end, if you will, requires the information needed to supply the inventory necessary to complete the task. This is a little bit maybe about the architecture of manufacturing resource library, which is in the middle of this diagram. It starts with, if you look on the right side, tool classifications, a really nice tool for drilling down into the different components and assemblies and finding exactly what you want quickly, searching it, and using it. The next major feature is the connection rules. Connection rules do 2 things for you. One, if I pick a holder and an end mill and I try to put them together but an adapter was required, then it wouldn't let me do it. So it's making sure that you're putting the right tools in the right holders, as well as it allows you to define that tool in a 3D manner so that it can be used in like NC, either G-code simulation or simulation within the centerline source code within NX. This slide is a little outdated right now, but the newest release has a lot more than 300 tool component classes and 70 tool assembly classes. This is really what drives the system, drives the searching, and so forth. Where our focus has been to this point is milling, drilling, and holders, and adapters, some adapters as well. We haven't gotten in to boring or turning and a lot of the inserted tools at this point. Why would anybody want to use MRL? So from a programmer perspective, it really does help you develop your tool assembly quicker. It also eliminates the duplication of effort. And let me give you an example of that. So if I gave 5 different programmers the same job to program, chances are I'm going to get 5 different programs and probably 5 different tool lists. That will not happen if you have this system and you have predefined tooling done by the administrator. It also provides accurate tool assemblies for the G-code simulation in the shop top. In terms of the shop floor, it helps with an accurate drawing. It helps you correctly and put the correct tool into the machine. And then obviously we're all trying to reduce skews in terms of our tooling skews, which can result in substantial savings. So now, after the introduction, I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about how we would use your ASCII tool database to define cutters, and then followed by a little bit of information on how we're going to try to prepare libraries that you could consume. Everyone's probably familiar, if you're familiar with NXCAM, you're probably familiar with the ASCII tool database. It's down in deep underneath the NXCAM installation. Any cutter that you define in NX to use in a program gets captured in the ASCII tool database. And we're going to talk how we can take the data from that and automatically create the cutters necessary within MRL. So NRL comes out of the box with you might have heard of part families or part family templates. It's used throughout NX, and there's spreadsheet-driven ways to create similar objects. So MRL comes with metric ones, and for a lot of the commonly used cutters, and Swoosh has taken what they've started and converted them over to English, so that basically we're creating English components versus metric components. And we've done this for a lot of the common cutters we're finding inside of our customers' ASCII tool database, like twist drills, center drills, end mills, ball mills, angle and chamfer mills, T-slots. And we're always adding to this. What we would like to think, based on the tool libraries I've seen to this point, it'll take me about a day, and I can create 80 to 90% of the tools that are in your tool library. There's examples, like for instance, I've got a particular customer that has a whole bunch of really complex cavity tools or step mills or step drills or whatever you wanted to call them, when there was no solid model available, so we had to model those up. So stuff like that takes extra time, but for the classes you see there, we can pretty much knock out 80–90% in a day. So with this, there's a question about the importance of English units in the United States, and right now I'd like to ask Diana to give you a quick poll to get some input from you on this particular topic. Diana?
Okay, I'm going to launch a poll real quick, guys. And the question is, how important is it for you to work with English unit NX part components and assemblies versus metric components and assemblies. This will help us, guide the whole presentation for today and everything. So I'll just leave it up for maybe an additional 10 seconds. If you can answer that, that'd be awesome. Get your answers in there. And 1. All right, close poll. And I'm going to share the results real quick. So it looks like 81% says that it's very important to have English unit NX part components and assemblies. 13% says it's relatively important, and then 6% says it's not important at all.
Thank you, Diana.
No problem.
So now we're getting a little bit into the nuts and bolts in terms of the task of converting your ASCII database into MRL. You've seen this cutter definition on the left here that correlates to the ASCII toolbase database, and then if you look on the right, that's how you would define a ball nose end mill within MRL. So what we've done is we've developed a mapping system, if you will, that takes that information on the left, meaning the ASCII database, and puts that information inside of MRL, as well as creating the geometry associated with it. So there's some master data, company codes, product designation. There's some geometric data, which we use to create the geometry. There's connection data, which helps you do that automatically, as automatic assembly creation, as well as understanding what tools can be connected to what and how. And then there's also some technology data. Right before I go into a little demonstration, I'd like to ask you one more question, or I'd like to ask Diana to ask you one more question.
Good. Sorry about that. So this one is, assuming you have an accurate spun 3D definition of a cutter for G-code simulation, how important is it for the 3D representation to include flutes or inserts? So I'll just leave this up for an additional 10 seconds, and then I'll close it, and then I'll share it with everyone. So we got 7 seconds left. 6.
So basically what we've done to this point is put everything out as spun geometry, so it's accurate in a G-code simulation. And on the other side, where you want to know that accuracy, is in inventory. So if for instance I had a cutter that had 2 inserts and 2 set screws, and that's what I need to order, but my object only looks like a popsicle stick. MRL can still handle that in terms of inventory, so that one piece of geometry can be broken up in a bill of material that includes the 2 set screws and the 2 inserts. So Diana, how are the results in that one?
Well, the results look like, so it says 22, but we actually had another person join in. It's 23% very important, 6% important, 17% somewhat important, 50% said not important at all, and 6% is unsure.
That's interesting. Okay, good. And I also appreciate any time you can give us any other feedback on this stuff. It would be just awesome. And we're about done with the questions. So now I'd like to actually do a little bit of work with the ASCII tool database. You folks have probably all seen an ASCII tool database. It's deep in the bowels of the NX implementation. If you go down it, it basically tells you what types of cutters you can put in the database and the variables associated with those cutters. We've also noticed that there's a good class correlation between, for instance, these classes here, like non-indexable end mill, and the classes that are defined in MRL, which makes our job a lot easier. So if I'm just going to do a small example here. I'm going to come down to ball nose end mills. And I come down, I'm assuming a lot of you guys are familiar with this, but if you notice below here, UGTs, those are the ones that come out of the box. A lot of people delete those and only go with what they have. These are specific to a particular customer. So I'm just going to do a simple copy with that. And then I'm going to go to a spreadsheet we've set up. So in that spreadsheet, for each of the different classes we've set up, what I've shown you earlier, our mapping and in a legend, as well as what that stuff represents. And then we have a data view. So we've set this data view up so that I can come in and up here is the MRL data, down here is the ASCII data. So I'm just going to use and I'll try not to make this too much of a Excel tutorial, but I do want to kind of show you what we're trying to do here. And this enables me to actually get it placed all at once without any other formatting required. So, and all this stuff is really well documented. So once I finish that, it puts the data in for me as I pasted the data in there, all those different columns and so forth. And now I have to map it to the MRL types. It also determined a unique identifier for each of the parts for us. What I like to do with the unique identifier is actually put that under the OS part file name. I like to take the DB part number is actually determined by Team Center. And I'll just go a couple of these for you just to give you an idea how it works. But so I'm copying that, pasting it on the Team Center side. You got HEI is what we use on the NX side to define the overall length. So I would come over here and find HEI and copy that. And so, you'll notice how some of the things calculated as I went off this. It would probably take me about 2 more minutes to finish it, but all you can tell is all I'm really doing is mapping, from here to there. So I don't want to bore you with that. So, but once I've done all that, which really doesn't take very long, then the next step is to actually get it into MRL. So if we look at the next slide here, so the steps, now that I've got my data mapped in Excel, the next step is to, with all the implementations that we do of MRL, we provide these part family templates. So they're already installed. Starting from scratch would take a lot longer, but basically all we got to do is copy and paste because we've already set them up for you. We generate the IDs for the family members, and we generate the part family members themselves. And I'll do that real quick. So I'm just going to go to really the same file that you just saw there, but I've actually finished the mapping. And I'm also going to go into Team Center here. So I don't know if you've seen Team Center much, but this is just my home view, and it allows me to get to parts or anything that I've referenced in the past. It's really a bunch of links. So if I basically take that part family template, which is related to the ball nose part family template, or excuse me, spreadsheet entries that I showed you, it actually opens it up in NX, and if you've used part family templates in the past, you've got a part family spreadsheet. Before I go in there, I'm going to go and do my copy. So basically I'm going to copy something into my copy buffer before I can paste it into the part family. So now if I open up with every part family, there's a spreadsheet, and notice here's the spreadsheet. So right now I've got instances for all of these different parts available within MRL. So, and this format that we've established, so all I have to do is take and paste, just do a paste of the 3 new ones. So now I've got the 3 new ones. Now I need to actually create IDs for those 3 new ones. There's an add-in for that within it's actually within Excel that you get to. So it tells me that it's done the assignment that I requested, and then I can bring that spreadsheet back up, save the spreadsheet, get out of that. Now if I go back to Team Center, and this is good because I'll get to show you how you drill down a little bit, how you drill down into this stuff. So I've actually got it there already, but let me back up here and show you how I would get there. I'll close things down. So in MRL, you've got fixtures, factory resources, all of these different things that that pertain to the manufacturing process. The one on the bottom is tools. Okay, under tools, I'll collapse those down a little bit. So under tools, you have assemblies and components. What we are doing is you build assemblies from components. We are building components. So I'm going to go within components, milling, solid mills versus an inserted mill, for instance. Select that, and I do a search. Go back to the table. It's shown up in the table. So it's very easy to go through those steps. And another way to add data is like if you only have 1 or 2, and I only use 3 as an example just for brevity, but you can also go in at any time. So you've got a table view of it, and you have a properties view. So at any time, now that I've got that, if I wanted to add a ball end milling cutter, I could start typing in here, type in all that information, and it would actually add it that way. So you can add a spreadsheet, or you can add them if you only got a 1 or 2 to define. You can add them this way. So, and that was the demonstration for that. So the last area, unfortunately, it's kind of become more of a question than an answer. We've tried several different things in implementing it, and we ran into some challenges and a lot of questions. So we'd really like some information. So basically, Sandvik, for instance, has, I think they've released 12,000 Skews. They plan to release another 40,000 shortly. Some of the other tool vendors are releasing them. We're trying to build them as we go based off of just our customers' requirements. For instance, we'll go out to a holder manufacturer. They'll give us the models. We'll prepare them and pull them into MRL. So what really, we've thought of 2 methods to do this, and we'd like to get some feedback on. One would be a push method. So like every quarter, we would put out on a downloadable website absolutely everything we accumulated during that quarter. So you would consider it as an incremental update. Or, which is where we'd started, it would be more of a pull methods. And so basically, we would give you a Team Center login. We're looking at it, a web client or even active workspace, where you could actually peruse through our libraries and then selectively say, hey, I want this cutter, or I want all the Hamer Cat 50 holders. And we're kind of wondering we'd like, I guess we have another, if you will, we have another poll right now that we'd like to get your feedback on. Diana?
So quick question, Steve, before I pull up the poll. We had one come in. So could you explain what Skews are?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. So SKU is anything like if you go to Walmart, every object that they sell has a SKU, and it's a unique identifier for that. So if they, you sell one brand of shoes, you got a SKU for that. So there's a particular SKU. Hopefully that helps.
Thanks, Steve. So I'm going to pull up the poll, guys. So just to remind everyone, a push method is where we would make available complete updates of everything we accumulate, either quarterly or semi-annually, for you to download. And a pull method is we would provide you a Team Center login to our MRL implementation on the cloud, where you'd specifically choose the components and or component class that you'd like to download. Right, and then I'm going to share the results for us. So Steve, it looks like 33% would prefer a push method, and 67% is looking at pull method.
Okay, that's terrific input. That really wraps up the presentation for the day. I'd be happy to answer, Sam and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
So if you don't hear your question asked during this webinar session, Steve or Sam will be getting back to you in the next few days and everything. So Steve, Sam, the first question that we have is, do you have to have Team Center in order to have MRL?
That is a really good question. Team Center can be not counting the cloud. It can be deployed, or MRL can be deployed in two ways. So there's two roles in the world of MRL. There's a tool administrator role, and then there's a programmer role. The programmer is the one that's using tools that are, or tool assemblies that are created by the administrator. We have, right now, one method of implementing it is so that the only one that actually would, first of all, the answer to the question is yes, Team Center needs to be running on a server. Secondly, so if you are the administrator, you understand it's Team Center because you're going to be seeing Team Center screens and so forth. But if you're a programmer, you go in and you go in to define tools or go into an existing tool library. There's just going to be another button up there that's going to basically crank off the search mechanism from within MRL. So the NX programmer won't even realize he's in Team Center. That's one way to deploy it. Another way to deploy it is for you to actually access NX CAM through Team Center. So it really depends on, might you possibly want to take advantage of other things in Team Center. Another one I just read about, as a matter of fact, they're going to enable like a MRL Connect type product like I was just mentioning, for if you want to start managing revisions of your programs. Now Team Center manages revisions of parts, assemblies, and so forth. But if you want to manage program revisions, you can also do that, and do that within NX without Team Center. Hopefully that answers it. Next one.
Next question that we have is, does MRL include an inventory management system?
Another good question. So all of the data is available to feed an inventory management system. I don't see a lot of inventory management systems for cutters out there. I see a lot more where the vendors basically fill up tubs, of specific, size cutters when you run low on them. But the data is there, and Siemens is doing some work to capture that and put a front end onto it so that it would actually make it into an inventory management system.
So we have another question that just came in. So for the pull methods, you have to have Team Center.
Nope. What we would do is we would set up, I'm gonna try to answer this one, and I might have Sam correct me if I'm mistaken. So the client we would be using would be a web client, so you wouldn't even actually have, you would be running our team center. You wouldn't actually be required to have it. You would go in, do your search, and hit a button, I don't know, build a shopping cart or however we end up implementing it, hit a button and it would output the files, download them for you locally, and then you would go through a import step. But you wouldn't actually have to have Team Center.
Correct. Yeah, you wouldn't have to have
Sam?
Team Center. Yeah, you wouldn't have to have Team Center installed on that particular workstation. It would all be done either to Active Workspace or to the regular web client. You would connect to our environment, and then we're still kicking around a couple of ideas, but the main gist of it, like Steve said, is that you'd be able to go into the database, search for the tool holder, any combination of, pick a couple of them, and either export them directly out of there, or you would be pushed off to a different area where you could download the entire package, and then we would provide you with some documentation on how to get that into your environment, and you could begin using those tools.
All right, and then we have time for one final question. So if you guys still do have questions, please don't hesitate to add these into the questions box. I will be sure that Steve and Sam get your questions, and they will get back to you by phone or by email. So the final question that we have, guys, is will the push-pull libraries be a subscription service?
Right now, the way we are structured, we're still considering, because different methods, but primarily if you buy MRL from Swoosh and Swoosh implements MRL for you and you're paying us maintenance on MRL, then chances are it's going to be included. If it's not included in that maintenance, it would be a very slight uplift, but if you buy it from us or are willing to pay maintenance, if you will, to us, then we would provide that to you for free or very little.
All right. Thanks, Steve and Sam. So it looks like, guys, we are out of time for the day, but we want to be sure that if any questions do come up, that you have our contact information. So Steve, if you can get to the next slide. So if you have any questions regarding today's webinar, or if you'd like to explore more about MRL, or if you'd like to set up a demo or anything, please feel free to contact Steve by phone or by email, listed on our screen right now. He's more than happy to assist with questions and requests. Once again, thanks so much, guys, for joining us for our session today. We hope you enjoyed it. And also be on the lookout for a webinar replay email that's going to be hitting your box in the next few days. And also, if you haven't registered for the second part of our webinar series and you'd like to do so, check back at your previous email for the link, or you can register for it on the replay email that's going out pretty soon. All right, guys, thanks so much. Bye.